Okay, yeah. So the idea behind new technologies really needs to be much more about understanding what is the job you're trying to get done. How does the new technology help me do a job better? Why is a flat panel television better than a cathode ray tube? What is that? Well, if you live in an apartment in New York City, it's clearly better because you can hang it on the wall. It doesn't take up space. The space is a premium. It's huge. Is the quality of the picture better? And for some things it's better. For some things it's worse. What becomes really interesting about it is that it becomes a new methodology for delivering video across a lot of different dimensions. And the same thing with the high definition, and the same thing with is it 1080p or 1080i or 720 or whatever. And for most people, their eyes just glaze over and they fall asleep in their chairs. You try to explain it to them. And so when we move beyond the hype of new technology and into the practicality of it, it really is, I've got to think through this process of how do I make it easy for the habitual mind to master. So the more intuitive it is, the easier it is to learn, the faster somebody will grasp it. Do you remember how hard it was to learn how to type? Remember when you used to type, and it would be like you'd look at the keys and you'd go very slow because you're trying to drive with your conscious mind. You're consciously looking at it. Over time, you actually train your unconscious mind. So now you think, you type. The fingers go exactly where they're supposed to. You can go 60, 70, 80 words a minute because the unconscious brain is the part that's really doing that. And that's what I really am trying to get across to a lot of my high technology companies, is to really understand that for this product to be successful, it must be mastered by the unconscious mind. So when BMW introduced the iDrive in 2002, it was horrible because it required the conscious brain to attend to something which should have been designed for the unconscious brain. So the original interface for the user interface for the iDrive, you had a wheel that accessed 8 different menus, nested menus. So imagine driving a car 70 miles per hour and having to navigate across all of these different menus. That it's like not just north, east, south, west, but northwest, southeast, etc. And then from there you'd have to click on something to access another menu. And so the idea that people want more technology is I think a very false assumption. Now, it doesn't mean they're necessarily against it. What we have to recognize is for them to adopt a new technology, they have to master it with their unconscious mind. So when if you look at the remote control for your entertainment center, I should say the remote controls for your entertainment center. How many do you have? 4, 5, 6. They're all laid out differently. They all are assigning different buttons to different functions. I mean, there's some similarity. The arrow forward is play, and the 2 lines is pause, and the block is stop. Not necessarily that intuitive, but we've gotten used to those. But all the other kind of functionalities on these buttons are not similar. So it's very hard, because we haven't standardized like we have with the typewriter, it's very, very hard to develop that habitual mastery of those devices, and it breeds a tremendous amount of frustration. Well, I think the ultimate example is the iPod and iTunes, and I say this because what Apple did, they didn't invent the technology. They didn't invent the the MP3 player. They didn't invent that portable device. But what they did was to create an intuitive interface that allowed for rapid mastery of the unconscious mind, both from the iTunes perspective and then from the iPod. And this is so important for us to realize, because being able to put 10,000 songs on a little device I can set in my pocket is not really advantageous if I can't access the songs I want. If so the whole idea of the playlist and the whole idea, and the reason why I like to cite this example is because it changed our music habit. It changed the way we listen to music. I'm old enough to remember going from albums to 8 tracks, to cassettes, to CDs, and this is so fundamentally different because every one of those things basically had a serving size of music, which was 8 to 12 songs. And sometimes you get a double album. Well, okay, it's 2 albums. It's still, that's the serving size. And now that seems ridiculous. The idea that I would think in terms of 8 songs or 10 songs. I think in terms of hundreds of songs. And for that habit to have occurred, we have to understand that our entire relationship to music has changed across the world. I mean, that is a success which is so unparalleled. And it's something that I really want all companies to take a step back and realize that this is why it's so important at the front end to realize you must design for the unconscious mind. You must design for something that I can think consciously about what I want to do, but my unconscious mind is driving the car.